I'd like to welcome all listeners to the analysis of pages 1 to 20 of James Joyce Ulysses by John Ruane. That is me. Just briefly, for 1 or 2 minutes, I'd like to introduce myself. I hail from the village of Mulligan, which is approximately 15 miles from Galway City in the west of Ireland. I'm married to Ellen, an American girl from New York City, Maspeth, Queens. We have 4 children and we're married for well over 15 years now. Briefly about myself as well, I am a playwright. I have written 11 one-act plays and 2 full-length plays. One of my plays, called Desperations, was staged at a small theatre called Theatre for a New City in New York City, funny enough. It played for 13 nights and went down pretty well in the year 2000, August year 2000. I got pretty good reviews from the Village Voice newspaper, from the Irish American newspaper, the Irish Echo, and the Irish Voice, another Irish American newspaper, and another magazine that I can't recall the name of at the moment. That was my first foray into writing as such. Since that, I have written now at the moment 11 one-act plays and 2 full-length plays, and I'm trying to get them staged in Ireland here for the past 12 years. I haven't had any luck yet. Hopefully that will change. That's about it. Now I want to go to James Joyce's Ulysses right now. I want to dive straight away into the first page. Now obviously listeners need a copy of Ulysses in front of them. It would be a good idea. Now the page I'm on here is page 3. Now depending on the book you're holding and the introduction, usually there's a long introduction to Ulysses. Some introductions can last 30, 40, even 50 pages, even less, whatever. Now it might be a good idea to mark the first page you're looking at, the start, just in the top right or top left hand corner, whichever, page 1, and the next page, page 2, and so on and so forth up to 20. So my page 1 that I marked here is actually, it's page 3. So it will kind of be on the same ballpark, so to speak. Now starting off the book, excuse me, I really don't want to go into, I want to read this book like I've never read this book before, even though I've read this book twice before. The last time I read this book was well over 12 years ago. Now, I've forgotten a lot of it, but I also know a lot what's going to happen as I'm reading it, but I'd like to read it as though I've never read this book before and not knowing what's coming next. I think that would be the best way to go through this book. Just figuring out the clues as Joyce has given them on the page, so to speak. So I'd like to start off the book here. First line: stately, plump Buck Mulligan came from the stairhead, bearing a bowl of leather on which a mirror and a razor lay crossed. A yellow dressing gown, ungirdled, was sustained gently behind him by the mild morning air. He held the bowl aloft and intoned, Introbido ad altara Dei. My Latin is not, that's obviously Latin, I think. My Latin is not very good, and my pronunciation is even worse. So it doesn't really matter. I want to start that now. So the clue we have so far is stately, plump Buck Mulligan. Plump Buck Mulligan came from the stairhead, bearing a bowl of leather on which a mirror and a razor lay crossed. Buck Mulligan. Buck Mulligan, I don't know of any first name called Buck, so Buck Mulligan is obviously a nickname, I would think. Came from the stairhead, it's the top of a stair. He's at the top of the stairs, bearing a bowl of leather on which a mirror and a razor lay across. So he's obviously gone shaving. He's gone shaving. A yellow dressing gown, untied, was sustained gently behind him by the mild morning air. So now we know he's gone shaving, and he's gone outside. He's outside in the mild morning air. He held the bowl aloft and intoned. The bowl he's carrying aloft and intoned. These few words here in Latin, obviously, it's like he's blessing. It's like something a priest would do, I'd say. Joyce is obviously having a bit of fun here. Now, next line. Halted, he peered down the dark winding stairs and called up coarsely. Halted. Now he stopped, and he peered down the dark winding stairs and called up coarsely. So now he's at the top of a dark winding stairs, and he's also called upwards. Now, the next line, dialogue. Come up, Kench, come up, you fearful Jesuit. So he shouted to somebody, come up, Kench, come up, you fearful Jesuit. Solemnly he came forward and mounted the round gunrest. He faced about and blessed gravely thrice the tower, the surrounding country, and the wakening mountains. Then, catching sight of Stephen Dedalus, he bent toward him and made rapid crosses in the air, gurgling in his throat and shaking his head. Stephen Dedalus, displeased and sleepy, leaned his arms on the top of the staircase and looked coldly at the shaking, gurgling face that blessed him, equine in length, and at the light on tonsured hair, grained and hued like pale oak. Now, just want to go back and look at that paragraph again. Solemnly he came forward and mounted the round gunrest. So the word gunrest. So he's in a building here where there's a gun rest. There was a gun resting on this sometime in the past, I would say. He faced about and blessed gravely 3 times the surrounding country and the wakening mountains, like a priest would bless, 1, 2, 3. Then, catching sight of Stephen Dedalus. Stephen Dedalus is obviously this same person, Kench, so I would say Kench is a nickname for Stephen Dedalus. Then, catching sight of Stephen Dedalus, he bent towards him and made rapid crosses in the air. Yes, like a priest would do it, or a pastor, rabbi, like blessing somebody. Gurgling in his throat, and shaking his head. Like you'd be after taking a drink of water and you'd gargle and shake your head. Stephen Dedalus, displeased and sleepy, okay, they're after wakening up, leaned his arms at the top of the staircase and looked coldly at the shaking, gurgling face that blessed him, equine in length, and at the light on tonsured hair, grained and hued like pale oak. So we know now Buck Mulligan has light hair, grained and pale. We know the colour of his hair now, and so forth. Stephen Dedalus has obviously come out, is also coming out into the air. He's at the top of the staircase. We still don't know what building they're in yet, but hopefully this will come to us. Next line. Buck Mulligan peered an instant under the mirror and then covered the bowl smartly. That's great writing. Buck Mulligan peered an instant under the mirror. So he's holding up the mirror and he peers under it. Now that's great imagery there. Buck Mulligan speaks the next line. Back to barracks, he said sternly. Back to barracks is like an Irish expression. Back to barracks. Come on, let's. It means nothing like, but it's like it's a common enough expression. Back to barracks. He added in a preacher's tone. Oh, here we are, preacher's tone. For this, O dearly beloved, is a genuine Christian body and soul and blood and owns. Slow music, please. Shut your eyes, gents. One moment. A little trouble about those white corpses. Silence all. So I think what's happening here is Buck Mulligan is the bowl he's holding, which he's going to share with. He's imagining it's like a bowl that would hold holy communions. which are like hosts in the Catholic faith, in the Catholic Church. Anybody who's ever been in a Catholic Church will see that you get Holy Communion during the Mass. And Joyce is poking a bit of fun here at Buck Mulligan is kind of acting like a priest. Oh, dearly beloved is a genuine Christian body and blood. He's pretending there's like hosts, Holy Communion in this bowl. Oh, dearly beloved is a genuine Christian body and soul and blood and ounce. Slow music, please. Shut your eyes, gents. One moment. A little trouble about those white corpses. Yes, here are white corpses. That would kind of refer to Holy Communions, which is a small round wafer thing. Now, in the Catholic faith, they believe, which I also believe, that these Holy Communions are the body and blood of Jesus Christ in a spiritual sense. And this is what Joyce is saying here, that this is where he uses white corpses and body and blood. He's more or less saying these Holy Communions are the body and blood of Jesus. That's basically what that means. Silence all. Next line. He peered sideways up and gave a long, low whistle of call. Then paused a while in rapt attention, his even white teeth glistening here and there with gold points. Christ, Thomas! 2 strong, shrill whistles answered through the cam. Now that's very. I have to read that small paragraph again. He peered sideways. So Buck Mulligan looked sideways and gave a long, low whistle. He gave a long, low whistle of call. So he obviously put his 2 fingers in his mouth and he whistled to somebody. Then paused a while in rapt attention. Then he paused, his even white teeth glistening here and there with gold points, with gold in his mouth. And he says, Christ, Thomas! So he also called to somebody, Christ, Thomas! 2 strong, shrill whistles answered through the cam. That's all. That's all the information we're given. He whistled, and somebody has whistled 2 whistles back to him. Next line. This is Buck Mulligan speaking in. Thanks, old chap, he cried briskly. That will do nicely. Switch off the current, will you? So, switch off the current. Thanks, old chap, he cried briskly. That will do nicely. Switch off the current, will you? Switch off the current. Let's think about the word current. Is Buck Mulligan talking about the current climate, the current state of affairs? Or he's holding a bowl. Switch off the current, will you? He's obviously talking about water current. So what has happened here, let's go back to the beginning of this paragraph. He peered sideways up and gave a long, low whistle of call. He's obviously has whistled to somebody. There's obviously, I'd say there's a hose going to a tap. And it's also going to the bowl. And he whistled to the other person to turn it on. The other person whistled twice back. 2 strong, shrill whistles answered the came, meaning, I hear you. And then he says, thanks, old chap, he cried briskly. That will do nicely. Switch off the current, will you? So the bowl is obviously filled with water. Now switch off the current, will you? That's what's going on there, basically. Next line. He skipped off the gun rest. So he jumped off the gun rest and looked gravely at his watcher, who is Stephen Dedalus looking at him, gathering about his legs the loose folds of his gown. His nightgown he's wearing. The plump, shadowed face and sullen oval jowl, hard to pronounce that, jowl, recalled a prelate, patron of the arts in the Middle Ages. So he obviously looked like some prelate in the Middle Ages. A pleasant smile broke quietly over his lips. Now this is Buck Mulligan speaking here. The mockery of it, he said gaily, your absurd name in ancient Greek. Now he's saying this to Stephen Dedalus. So obviously Stephen Dedalus' name, some ancient Greek had the name Stephen Dedalus too in the past, obviously I would say. Next line. He pointed his finger in friendly jest and went over to the parapet, laughing to himself. Stephen Dedalus stepped up, followed him wearily halfway, and sat down on the edge of the gunrest, watching him still as he propped his mirror on the parapet, dipped the brush in the bowl, and lathered cheeks and neck. That's just fabulous writing there. The imagery there is just brilliant, you know. Starting that now. So, starting the paragraph again. He pointed his finger in a funny jest. He's like waving his finger at Stephen Dedalus, being kind of, you know, bit of friendly, and went over to the parapet. So now we know they're obviously on the roof of a building to the parapet wall, laughing to himself. Stephen Dedalus stepped up, followed him wearily halfway, and sat down on the edge of the gunrest. So Stephen Dedalus has sat down on this gunrest, watching Buck Mulligan still as he propped his mirror on the parapet. So he's put the mirror on the top of the parapet wall, dipped the brush in the bowl, and lathered cheeks and neck. He's gone shaving. Next line. Buck Mulligan's gay voice went on. My name is absurd too, Malachi Mulligan. Two Dacalags, cannot pronounce that word. But it has a Hellenic ring, hasn't it? Tripping and sunny like the book himself. We must go to Athens. Will you come if I can get the aunt to fork out 20 quid? Just going through that paragraph now. My name is absurd too, Malachi Mulligan. So now we know Buck Mulligan, his first name is Malachi Mulligan. Two dialects, whatever, I can't pronounce that. But it is a Hellenic ring, hasn't it? Tripping and sunny like the book himself. Tripping and sunny like the book himself. Probably referring to a goat there. Not really sure about that. We must go to Athens, he's saying to Stephen Dedalus. Will you come if I can get the aunt to fork out 20 quid? To fork out 20 quid means to give us the loan of 20 quid, £20, $20, 20 whatever. Next line. He laid the brush aside and laughing with delight cried. This is Buck Mulligan speaking. Will you come, the Jejune Jesuit? Now, I want to stop there again. Will you come, the Jejune Jesuit? Buck Mulligan is calling Stephen Dedalus the Jejune Jesuit. Now, we know in the Catholic Church, there's an order called the Jesuits, who were, the Jesuits were an order, in the Catholic Church, and he's calling Stephen Dedalus the Jejune Jesuit, but in a kind of a jestful. Obviously, Stephen Dedalus is not a Jesuit, but he's referring to him as a Jesuit for some reason, which we may find out later. Next line. Ceasing, he began to shave with care. So Buck Mulligan is basically shaving. So now Stephen speaks the next line. Tell me, Mulligan, Stephen said quietly. Now this is just a great line the way it's delivered. Just 3 words, the next line. Yes, my love. So it's just, the imagery there is fantastic. It's just the way it's delivered. The line before that now. Tell me, Mulligan, Stephen said quietly. Yes, my love. You can nearly visualize Buck Mulligan turning around and saying, yes, my love. Next line. How long is Haynes going to stay in this tower? So Stephen Dedalus has asked Buck Mulligan, how long is Haynes going to stay in this tower? So now we know this building they're in is a tower. What kind of a tower? If we were to hazard a guess here now, we'd say, okay, there's a gun rest in it, and it's there's a gun rest in it. The parapet wall is going up to a roof. It's a tower. It could be like a watchtower by the sea, possibly. I'm guessing at this moment in time. So, anyways, back to the book. Stephen Dedalus says, how long is Haynes going to stay in this tower? So Haynes, there's obviously another person called Haynes staying with the two of them. Next line. Buck Mulligan showed a shaven cheek over his right shoulder. Now that's just great writing. Just visualize Buck Mulligan shaving, and then he showed the shaven cheek. So he's one side of his face shaved, and he showed a shaven cheek over his right shoulder. And then next line. God, isn't he dreadful, he said frankly. A ponderous Saxon. He thinks you're not a gentleman. God, those bloody English. Busting with money and indigestion. Because he comes from Oxford, you know, Dedalus. You have the real Oxford manners. He can't make you out. Oh, my name for you is the best. Kinch the knife blade. So I just want to read that paragraph again. So Buck Mulligan says, God, isn't he dreadful? He's obviously talking about this Haynes. he says frankly. A ponderous Saxon. Saxon is another word for an English person. A ponderous Saxon. So we know this now. Now we know this Haynes is English. A ponderous Saxon. He thinks you're not a gentleman. Obviously, Haynes thinks Stephen Dedalus is not a gentleman. God, those bloody English, bursting with money and indigestion. Because he comes from Oxford, you know, Dedalus, you have the real Oxford manner. He can't make you out. Oh, my nephew is the best. Kinch the knife blade. So Buck Mulligan, yeah, we're right about Kinch being a nickname for Stephen Dedalus, which it is. Which Buck Mulligan has stated here again. My nephew is the best. Kinch the knife blade. So next line, he shaved wearily over his chin. Next line, he was raving all night about a Black Panther. Stephen said, "Where is his gun case?" Great humour from Joyce. Joyce is just, in my book, Joyce is the most humorous writer in English or in any language ever. So I'm going to read that line again. He was raving all night about a Black Panther. Stephen said, "Where is his gun case?" He was raving all night about a black. So this Haynes was raving all night about Black Panther. So obviously Haynes was having a nightmare and he was dreaming and he was ranting and raving about a Black Panther. So Stephen said, "Where is his gun case? Where is his gun case? Because if he has a gun case and we don't hide it, he'll get up and he'll shoot. He'll shoot everybody in sight." Where is his gun case? Next line, a woeful lunatic, Mulligan said. "Were you in a funk?" A woeful lunatic, that's the real common expression here in Ireland. You hear it all the time. "Oh, he's a woeful lunatic." Or Mulligan said, "A woeful lunatic." It's a common expression here, a woeful lunatic. Mulligan said, "Were you in a funk? Were you in a funk? Were you in a deep sleep? I would guess." Next line, "I was," Stephen said with energy and growing fear. "Out here in the dark with a man I don't know." Excuse me. "Out here in the dark with a man I don't know, raving and moaning to himself about shooting a Black Panther. You save men from drowning. I'm not a hero, however. If he stays on here, I am off." So read that line again. "I was," Stephen said with energy and growing fear, "out here in the dark with a man I don't know, raving and moaning to himself." So same thing. This Haynes is, dreaming about, and he's ranting about shooting a Black Panther. "You save men from drowning." So Stephen Dedalus has said to Buck Mulligan, "You save men from drowning." So now we know Buck Mulligan swims, and he must have saved somebody in the past from drowning. "I'm not a hero, however. If he stays on here, I am off." Next line, Buck Mulligan frowned at the leather on his razor blade. He hopped down from his perch and began to search his trouser pockets hastily. So Buck Mulligan, you just visualize he's shaving now, and the razor he's using is full of, it's full of leather. So he hopped down his perch and began to search his trouser pockets hastily. He's obviously looking for something to wipe it with, I would say. So then Buck Mulligan says, "Scutter," he cried thickly. Scutter is an Irish expression here. It means a good few things, a lot of things actually. But in this instance, scutter means, "Damn it, I can't find it," more or less. Next line, he came over to the gun rest and, thrusting a hand into Stephen's upper pocket, said, "Lend us a loan of your nose rag to wipe my razor." Lend us a loan of your nose rag to wipe my razor, which is lend me a loan of your handkerchief, obviously. Next line, Stephen suffered him to pull out and hold up on show by its corner a dirty, crumpled handkerchief. Buck Mulligan wiped the razor blade neatly. Then, gazing over the handkerchief, he said, the bear's nose rag, a new colour for our Irish poets. Snot green, you can almost taste it, can't you?" The bear's nose rag. So obviously this Stephen Dedalus must be a bit of a writer, or he writes a bit of poetry or something, I would say. A new art colour for our Irish poets. Snot green. Joyce. You can almost taste it, can't you? Great imagery by Joyce here again. Next line. He mounted to the parapet again and gazed out over Dublin Bay. So yes, writing. Yes, so this tower is on the bay, and they're looking out over Dublin Bay. He mounted to the parapet again and gazed out over Dublin Bay, his fair oak pale hair stirring slightly. Great imagery. Next line. God, he said quietly, isn't the sea what Algie calls it? A grey sweet mother, the snot green sea, the scoritum tightening sea, epi, anapa, panton. Dedalus, the Greeks, I must teach you. You must read them in the original. Talata, Talata, she's our great sweet mother. Come and look. Referring to the sea. Come and look at the sea. Next line. Stephen stood up and went over to the parapet. Leaning on it, he looked down on the water and on the mailboat clearing the harbour mouth of Kingstown. So there's a mailboat out in the bay and it's leaving, clearing the harbour. A mailboat. Next line. Our mighty mother, Buck Mulligan said, referring to the sea. He turned abruptly his great searching eyes from the sea to Stephen's face. Next line. The aunt thinks you killed your mother, he said. That's why she won't let me have anything to do with you. So Buck Mulligan has said to Stephen Dedalus, my aunt thinks you killed your mother, he said. That's why she won't let me have anything to do with you. So obviously Buck Mulligan's aunt is telling Buck Mulligan, don't associate with Stephen Dedalus because he killed his mother. Not in a literal sense, more in a figurative sense, I would guess. Next line. Someone killed her, Stephen said gloomily. Next line. You could have knelt down, damn it, Kent, when your dying mother asked you. Buck Mulligan said, I'm Hyperborean as much as you, but to think of your mother begging you with her last breath to kneel down and pray for her, and you refused. There is something sinister in you. I'm going to read that paragraph again. You could have knelt down, damn it, Kench, Buck Mulligan is saying to Stephen Dedalus, when your dying mother asked you. So knelt down. So obviously Stephen Dedalus' mother was dying, and she probably asked Stephen Dedalus to kneel down and say a prayer, I would say. Buckman said, I'm Hyperborean as much as you, but to think of your mother begging you with her last breath to kneel down and pray for her, yes. To kneel down and pray for her, and you refused. There is something sinister in you. Next line. He broke off and lathered again lightly his farther cheek, lathered with the soap or foam, still shaving obviously. A tolerant smile curled his lips. Great writing. Next line. But a lovely mummer, he murmured to himself, Kench, the loveliest mummer of them all. Mummer is a mummer in Ireland here is on Halloween night. People go out singing some and they call around the houses and they play a few songs. They look for money, obviously. It's a kind of a tradition here in Ireland. Mummers, and they're called them mummers, so I think you might be referring to a mummer there. But a lovely mummer, I would say. Next line. He shaved evenly and with care, in silence, seriously. Next line. Stephen, an elbow rested on the jagged granite, leaned his palm across his brow and gazed at the fraying edge of his shiny black coat sleeve. Now, Stephen, an elbow rested on the jagged. He's leaning his elbow on the parapet wall, obviously. Leaned his palm against his brow and gazed at the fraying edge of his shiny black coat sleeve. Pain that was not yet the pain of love fretted his heart. Silently in a dream she had come to him after her death, her wasted body within its loose, brown graveclothes giving off an odour of wax and rosewood. Her breath that had bent upon him, mute, reproachful, a faint odour of wetted ashes. Now, just want to read that paragraph again. So Stephen, pain that was not yet the pain of love fretted his heart. So he's feeling a pain in his heart, Stephen Dedalus. Silently in a dream she had come to him after her death. Obviously his mother came to him like a ghost in his death, or he dreams about his mother. Her dying body within its loose brown grave clothes, giving off an odour of wax and rosewood. Her breath that had bent upon him, mute, reproachful, a faint odour of wet ashes. She could have been a smoker. But basically all that means is that Stephen Dedalus is dreams about his mother, and he sees her sees her as she's like a ghostly figure as she's dying, so on and so forth. Next line. Across the threadbare cuff edge, which is back to the sleeve again, there was across the threadbare cuff edge, the sleeve on his coat, he saw the sea. Just above the cuff edge, he sees the sea. He saw the sea, hailed as a great sweet mother by the well-fed voice beside him. Hailed as a great sweet mother by Buck Mulligan, by the well-fed voice beside him. The ring of bay and skyline held a dull green mass of liquid. The ring of bay, he's still looking out at the sea, held a dull green mass of liquid. Just fantastic imagery there. A bowl of white china had stood beside her deathbed, holding the green sluggish bile which she had torn up from a rotting liver by fits of loud groaning vomiting. Now I want to read that again. Obviously referring to Stephen Dedalus is referring here to his mother. A bowl of white china, like a white bowl, had stood beside her deathbed, holding the green sluggish bile which she had torn up from a rotting liver by fits of loud groaning vomiting. So obviously she died of possibly TB, tuberculosis. If I'm guessing, it could be something else, but some disease like that, where she was doing a lot of coughing and a lot of stuff was coming up from her stomach, and she was just spit into this white bowl. That's what that means. Next line. Buck Mulligan wiped again his razor blade with a handkerchief. Next line. Poor dog's body, he said in a kind voice. I must give you a shirt and a few nose rags. How are the second-hand breeks? So Buck Mulligan has said to Stephen Dedalus, poor dog's body. Now that's an Irish expression, dog's body. Oh, he's a dog's body. It doesn't really mean anything. It means, poor dog's body. It means, poor fellow, more or less, kind of. Poor dog's body, he said in a kind voice. I must give you a shirt and a few nose rags. A few handkerchiefs, nose rags. How are the second-hand breeks? I would say pants. How are the second-hand pants? They fit well enough, Stephen answered. So obviously Buck Mulligan in the past gave Stephen Dedalus a pair of second-hand pants. They fit well enough, Stephen answered. Buck Mulligan attacked the hollow beneath his underlip. Attacked it with the razor, which is great writing there. Next line. The mockery of it, he said contentedly. Second leg they should be. God knows what poxy bowsy left them off. More humour from Joyce here. The mockery of it, Buck Mulligan said contentedly. Second leg they should be. So Buck Mulligan is saying that they shouldn't be called second-hand pants. They should be called second leg. They should be. The mockery second leg they should be. So they shouldn't be called second-hand pants. They should be called second leg pants. Then he says, God knows what poxy bowsy left him off. God knows what poxy bowsy left. God knows who the person was that wore them before. Poxy bowsy. What poxy bowsy is another Irish expression meaning bowsy. It means what fellow, more or less. I have a lovely pair with a hair stripe grey. So he's another pair of second-hand pants with a hair stripe, with a stripe down the side, and they're grey. You'd look spiffy in them. You'd look good in them. I'm not joking, Kench. You look damn well when you're dressed. That's pretty self-explanatory there. Next line. Thanks, Stephen said. I can't wear them if they are grey. Next line. Buck Mulligan speaking. He can't wear them. Buck Mulligan told his face in the mirror. Etiquette is etiquette. He kills his mother, but he can't wear grey trousers. So Buck Mulligan, you can just imagine him looking in the mirror. He kills his mother, but he can't wear grey trousers. Next line. He folded his razor neatly, and with stroking pads of fingers felt the smooth skin. So, and after shaving there, just feeling you can just imagine him feeling his chin with his fingers. That's just great writing there. Next line. Stephen turned his gaze from the sea and to the plump face with its smoke blue mobile eyes, which is Buck Mulligan. Next line. The fellow I was with in the ship last night, said Buck Mulligan, says you have GPI. He's up in Dottyville with Conley Norman. Dinner paralysis of the insane. Now, them 2 or 3 lines seem a bit confusing there, but if just given a bit of thought, they're pretty easy enough to figure out. The fellow I was with in the ship last night, said Buck Mulligan. In the ship last night. Now, coming from Ireland, the fellow I was with in the ship last night. The ship is obviously a pub, and I remember the first time I read this book, I said, the fellow I was with in the ship last night. The ship is the name of a pub, obviously. It's like the village I come from, Monavea here. Sometimes you say, were you in Morden's last night, or were you in McGann's last night? Were you in the Woodside last night? Were you in Kelly's last night? And there are the 4 pubs in Monavea. So he says the fellow was with in the ship last night, and the ship is the name of a pub. If I was to guess right here now, we'll find out probably later on. Say Buck Mulligan says you have GPI. He's up in Dottyville with Conley Norman. So there's a bit of humour here now in this, really. It's kind of hard to explain, but so Buck Mulligan was drinking with a fellow in a pub called the Ship last night, and this fellow says to Buck Mulligan, your friend Stephen Dedalus suffers from GPI, which is general paralysis of the insane. He's up so Buck Mulligan is saying the fellow he was drinking with is up in Dottyville with Conley Norman. He's up in Dottyville. The fellow Buck Mulligan was drinking with is up in Dottyville. Now Dottyville, someone who's Dotty is a little bit crazy. He's up in Dottyville. He's out from the asylum, probably out on evening leave, or it could be let out a few days a week or something. But he's home. He's from the person he's drinking with is out from the mental hospital, and he's up in Dottyville. That's where he's from. He's up in Dottyville with Conley Norman. Conley Norman is another person who is also a patient in the asylum. So it's funny in the sense that the person that was talking or drinking with Buck Mulligan in the pub was saying Stephen Dedalus is from general paralysis of the insane, and he's insane himself. Bit of humour from Joyce there again. Next line. He swept the mirror a half circle in the air to flash the tidelings abroad in sunlight, now radiant on the sea. That's a great line. His curling, shaven lips laughed, and the edges of his white glittering teeth. Laughter seized all his strong, well-knit trunk. Next line. Look at yourself, he said, you dreadful bird. Look at yourself, he said. He's obviously shown the mirror. He's obviously put the mirror in front of Stephen Dedalus' face and says, look at yourself, he said, you dreadful bird. Next line. Stephen bent forward and peered at the mirror held out to him, cleft by a crooked crack. That's just a great way of describing that. Hair on end. Now that is just great writing there. I'm going to stop there again. Stephen bent forward and peered at the mirror held out to him, cleft by a crooked crack. Hair on end. Think about a crack. So the mirror has a crack in it, and if you think about it, if you put a hair on end, stood a hair on end, Doesn't it look like a crooked crack? Absolutely it does. Cleft by a crooked crack here on end. Next line. Or, as he and others see me. This is what Stephen Dedalus now right here is thinking as he and others see me. He's thinking about his face. Who chose this face for me? This dog's body to rid of vermin. It asks me too. Now right here, Stephen Dedalus is thinking to himself, as Buck Mulligan and others see me, this is the face to see. Who chose this face for me? This dog's body to rid of vermin. It asks me too. He obviously doesn't like his face. Next line. I pinched it out of Skibby's room, Buck Mulligan said. It does her all right. The ant always keeps plain-looking servants for Malachi. Lead him not into temptation, and her name is Ursula. So I pinched it out of Skibby's room. So Buck Mulligan is saying, I stole this out of the Skibby's room, which is the servant's room. It does her all right. This mirror does the servant all right. The ant always keeps plain-looking servants for Malachi. The Buck Mulligan's ant, who he's staying with, obviously, always keeps plain-looking servants. The ant always keeps plain-looking servants for Malachi. Lead him not into temptation. That's pretty self-explanatory. And the servant's name is Ursula. The ant always keeps plain-looking servants for Malachi. Now, that could be Malachi himself, who's always called Malachi, or also the ant's husband could be called Malachi, who would be Malachi's, it could be his uncle as well. The ant always keeps plain-looking servants for Malachi, meaning it could be Buck Mulligan Malachi, or maybe her husband is called Malachi. We don't know that yet. Anyway, the servant's name is Ursula. Next line. Laughing again, he brought the mirror away from Stephen's peering eyes. Next line. The rage of Caliban at not seeing his face in a mirror, he said. If while we're only alive to see you. The rage of Caliban at not seeing his face in a mirror, he said. If while we're only alive to see you. Now, I think this is a reference to the book, The Picture of Dorian Gray, if I'm not mistaken, by Oscar Wilde. If I was to guess, that's what I said that is about. Next line. Drawn back and pointing, Stephen said with bitterness, it is a symbol of Irish art, the cracked looking glass of a servant. Next line. Buck Mulligan suddenly linked his arm in Stephen's and walked with him round the tower, his razor and mirror clanking in the pocket where he had trusted. That's nice. Very good writing there. Buck Mulligan suddenly linked his arm with Stephen's. So he linked his arm and they're walking around the tower, on the top, on the roof. His razor and mirror clanking in the pocket where he had trusted him. So the razor, he put them in his pocket. Next line. It's not fair to tease you like that, Kent, is it? He said kindly. God knows you have more spirit than any of them. So Buck Mulligan says, it's not fair to tease you like that, Kent, is it? He said kindly. God knows you have more spirit than any of them. Next line. Parried again, he fears the lancet of my art as I fear that of his, the cold steel pen. Now this line here, it could be Buck Mulligan thinking, or it's probably Stephen Dedalus just thinking again, and his thoughts have been put on paper by Joyce. Parried again, he fears the lancet of my art as I fear that of his, the cold steel pen. The cold steel pen, I don't know what that means now, to be honest. Next line. Cracked looking glass of a servant. Someone is speaking here now. Cracked looking glass of a servant. Tell that to the oxy chap downstairs and touch him for a guinea. He's stinking with money and thinks you're not a gentleman. His old fella made his tin by selling jalap to Zulus or some bloody swindler or other. God kench, if you and I could only work together, we might do something for the island. Hellenize it. So it's obviously Buck Mulligan speaking here. Cracked looking glass of a servant, he says. Tell that to the oxy chap downstairs, who's this Haynes, this other person staying with them. And touch him for a guinea. Ask him for the loan of a guinea. A guinea is a little over £1, a little over $1. It's money. He's stinking with money. This Haynes is stinking with money. He's rich. And thinks you're not a gentleman. His old fellow made his money by selling jalap to Zulus or some bloody swindler or other. God, Kinch, if you and I could only work together, we might do something for the island, for Ireland. Hellenize it. Hellenize it is just an expression he's using there. Cranley's arm, his arm. Cranley's arm, his arm. Cranley's arm, his arm. No, I think Buck Mulligan has just said that out. Cranley's arm, his arm, which is like reciting just a few words for no reason. Next line. And to think of your having to beg from these swine. I am the only one that knows what you are. Why don't you trust me more? What have you up your nose against me? Is it Haynes? If he makes any noise here, I'll bring down Seymour and we'll give him a ragging worse than they gave Clive Kimthorpe. Now this is Buck Mulligan speaking here again. And to think of you having to beg from these swine, referring to the English, I think. I'm the only one that knows what you are. Why don't you trust me more? Buck Mulligan saying to Stephen Dedalus, why don't you trust me more? What have you up your nose against me? What have you up your nose against me? Meaning, I detect there's something going on with you, Stephen Dedalus here, but I can't figure out what have you up your nose against me. Is it Haynes, the third person that's staying with him? If he makes any noise here, I'll bring down Seymour. Seymour could be the landlord, and we'll give him a ragging worse than they gave Clive Kenthorpe a ragging. We'll give him a ragging. We'll give him, if I was to guess there, we'll give him a ragging worse. We'll give out to him, the two of us. I would kind of think that's what he's implying there. Next line. Young shouts of moneyed voices in Clive Kenthorpe's rooms. Pale faces, they hold their ribs with laughter, one clasping another. Oh, I shall expire, break the news to her gently. Aubrey, I shall die, with slit ribbons of her shirt. Whipping the air, he hops and hobbles round the table with trousers down at heels, chased by Agus of Magdalen with the tailor's shears, a scared cat's face gilded with marmalade. I don't want to be debagged, don't you play the giddy ox for me. Shouts from the open window, startling evening in the quadrangle. A deaf gardener, aproned, mess with Matthew Arnold's face, pushes his moor on the sombre lawn, watching narrowly the dancing motes of Gratham's. To ourselves, new paganism, Amphalos. Now that whole paragraph seems very confusing, and it's hard to make any head nor tail to it. But if you think about it, and I think this is what's happening here, is Buck Mulligan is reciting a verse from a poem or a play, or it's like he's singing a song, but it's not a song out loud for no reason. It's like someone just it's like he's reciting, like you recite a poem out loud, or it could be a piece of a play or something like that. That's all that is. So I want to start here again. Young shouts of money voice. This book, just Buck Mulligan saying whatever comes into his mind. That's all this whole paragraph is. Young shouts of moneyed voices in Clive Kenthorpe's room. Pale faces they hold their ribs with laughter, one clasping another. Oh, I shall expire, break the news to her gently. Aubrey, I shall die, with slit ribbons of the shirt. Whipping the air, he hobbles round the table with trousers down at heels, chased by Agus of Magdalen with the tailor's shears. A scared cat's face gilded with marmalade. That's a great line. A scared cat's face gilded with marmalade. A scared cat's face, because the calf sees he's about to get killed, so he's a scared look in his face. Great writing. A scared cat's face gilded with marmalade. I don't want to be debagged. Don't you play the giddy ox with me? Shouts from the open window, startling evening in the quadrangle. A deaf gardener, aproned, messed with Matthew Arnold's face, pushes his moor on the sombre lawn, watching narrowly the dancing motes of Gratham. To ourselves, new paganism, Aphalos. That's all that is. That is just Buck Mulligan reciting bit of a play, long poem or something like that. That's all that is. Next line. Let him stay, Stephen said. There's nothing wrong with him except at night. So Stephen also said, let Haynes stay. He's okay just at night. He rants and raves about this banter and so on. Next line. Then what is it? Buck Mulligan asked impatiently. Cough it up. I'm quite frank with you. What have you against me now? So Buck Mulligan has detected something up with Stephen Dedalus and his attitude towards him. And he's trying to figure out what's going on here. So he says, then what is it? Buck Mulligan says to Stephen Dedalus. Then what is it? Buck Mulligan asked impatiently. Cough it up. Tell me what's on your mind. Cough it up, it means. I'm quite frank with you. I'll tell you whatever's on my mind. What have you against me now? You have something up with you. Next line. They halted, looked towards the blunt cape of Braehead that lay on the water like the snout of a sleeping whale. Stephen freed his arm quietly. That's fantastic writing there. They halted, the two of them halted, stopped, looking towards the blunt cape of Braehead. Now, obviously, Braehead is way in the distance, and it's like Braehead, it's like a cliff, I would say. It lay on the water like the snout of a sleeping whale, which it would look like the snout of a sleeping whale. Stephen freed his arm quietly. Freed his arm from it being linked by Buck Mulligan. So then he says, next line, do you wish to tell me? He asked. Next line, yes, what is it? Buck Mulligan answered. I don't remember anything. He looked in Stephen's face as he spoke. A light wind passed his brow, fanning softly his fair, uncombed hair and stirring silver pints of anxiety in his eyes. Fantastic writing there. Okay, I want to go back a line or two here. Do you wish me to tell you? He asked. Stephen Dedalus is about to tell Buck Mulligan what's on his mind. Yes, Buck. What is it? Buck Mulligan answered. I don't remember anything. That happened between us. He looked in Stephen's face as he spoke. A light wind passed his brow, fanning softly his fair, uncombed hair and stirring silver pints of anxiety in his eyes. Great writing. Next line. Stephen, depressed by his own voice, said, do you remember the first day I went to your house after my mother's death? Next line. Buck Mulligan frowned quietly and said, what? Where? I can't remember anything. I remember only ideas and sensations. Why? What happened in the name of God? Next line. You were making tea, Stephen said, and I went across the landing to get more hot water. Your mother and some visitor came out of the drawing room. She asked you who was in your room. Next line. Yes, Buck Mulligan said. What did I say? I forget. Next line. You said, Stephen answered, oh, it's only Dedalus, whose mother is beastly dead. I just want to go back over that paragraph again. So, Stephen, depressed by his own mind, said, do you not remember the first day I went to your house after my mother's death? So he went to Buck Mulligan's house. Buck Mulligan frowned quietly and said, what? Where? I can't remember anything. I remember only ideas and sensations. Why? What happened in the name of God? Next line. You were making tea, Stephen said, and I went across the landing to get more water. Your mother, Stephen's mother, and some visitor came out of the drawing room. She asked you who was in your room. Yes, Buck Mulligan said. What did I say? I forget. You said, Stephen answered, oh, it's only Dedalus. His mother is beastly dead. A flush which made him seem younger and more engaging rose to Buck Mulligan's cheek. Just fantastic writing there. A flush. He got embarrassed. Next line. Did I say that? He asked. Well, what harm is that? He shook his constraint from him nervously. His constraint is the redness in his face. He shook it. He's trying to get away from it. It's great writing again there. Next line. And what is death? He asked. This is Buck Mulligan speaking. And what is death? He asked. Your mother or ours or my own? You saw only your mother die. I see them pop up every day in the Mater and Richmond and cut up into tribes in the dissecting room. It's a beastly thing and nothing else. It simply doesn't matter. You wouldn't kneel down to pray for your mother on your deathbed when she asked you. Why? Because you have the cursed Jesuit strain in you. Only it's injected the wrong way. To me it's all a mockery and beastly. Her cerebral lobes are not functioning. She calls the doctor St. Peter. Teasel and picks buttercups off the quilt. Humour her till it's over. You crossed her last wish and death, and yet you suck with me because I don't whinge like some hired mute from La Loretta's. Absurd. I suppose I did say it. I didn't mean to offend the memory of your mother. So I want to read over that paragraph again. So this is Buck Mulligan speaking. And what is death? He asked. Your mother or your mother's or yours or my own. You saw only your mother die. I see them pop off every day in the Mater and Richmond. So Buck Mulligan has said, I see them pop off. I see them pop off. I see them die every day in the Mater and Richmond, which I would say is obviously two hospitals. So now we know Buck Mulligan works in a hospital, or he's some way associated with a hospital, because he says, I see them pop off. I see them die every day in the Mater and Richmond hospitals, and cut up into tribes in the dissection room. So he's obviously in the autopsy, where they do autopsies, and cut into tribes in the dissection room. It's a beastly thing and nothing else. It simply doesn't matter. You wouldn't kneel down and pray for your mother on her deathbed when she asked you. So he's saying to Stephen Delzine, you wouldn't say a prayer for when she was dying. Why? Because you have the cursed Jesuit strain in you. Why? Because you have the cursed Jesuit strain in you. Now, if I was to guess there, the cursed Jesuit strain he's referring to, you're stubborn. Because I think the Jesuits are known for, not for stubbornness, but they have a great will, and they would be tenacious in things they want to do, like. Why? Because you're the cursed, you're stubborn. You will not give it, you're that's what he kind of means there, I think. Why? Because the cursed Jesuit strain in you. Only it's injected the wrong way. To me, it's all a mockery and beastly. Her cerebral lobes are not functioning. She's obviously. So now we know Stephen Dedalus' mother here was, obviously senile, probably, I'd say, towards the end. Because she called the doctor St. Peter, so her mind wasn't functioning properly. Teasel and picks buttercups off the quilt. Just imagine a quilt and a bed and it's flowers and buttercups, and she's trying to pick the buttercups, so she's not in her right mind, obviously. Humour her till it's over. Humour her till it's over. Why don't you play along with her, You crossed her last wish in death. You crossed her last. You wouldn't. Why didn't you? You crossed her last wish was for you to kneel down and say a few prayers for her, and you wouldn't do it. And yet you sulk with me because I don't whinge like some hired mute from Laber's hired mute, which is something to do with a play, I would say, where the people are hired or something like that. Absurd. I suppose I did say it. I didn't mean to offend the memory of your mother. Next line. He had spoken himself into boneless. Stephen, shielding the gaping wounds which the words had left in his heart, said very coldly. Next line. I am not thinking of the offence to my mother. Next line. Of what, then? Buck Mulligan asked. Of the offence to me, Stephen answered. Buck Mulligan swung round on his heel. Oh, an impossible person, he exclaimed. He walked off quickly round the parapet. Stephen stood at his post, gazing over the calm sea towards the headland. Now, that's pretty self-explanatory. I am not thinking of the offence to my mother. Of what then? Buck Mulligan asked. Of the offence to me, Stephen answered. Buck Mulligan swung round on his heels. Oh, an impossible person, he exclaimed. He walked off quickly round the parapet. Stephen stood at his post, where he was, gazing over the calm sea towards the headland. Sea and headland now grey dim. Pulses were beating in his eyes, veiling their sight, and he felt the fever of his cheeks. Pulsing were beating his eyes. His heart was beating faster, basically. Pulses were beating in his eyes, veiling their sight, and he felt the fever in his cheeks. Getting a bit flushed, probably. Next line. A voice within the tower called loudly, "Are you up there, Mulligan?" So this, are you up there, Mulligan? This is obviously the third person, Haynes, who was down in the tower, and now he shouted up. A voice within the tower called loudly, "Are you up there, Mulligan?" I'm coming, Buck Mulligan answered. He turned towards Stephen and said, look at the sea. What does it care about offences? Chuck Loyola Kench and come on down. The Sassenach wants his morning rashers. So what that means is, Steve, or Haynes, this other third person that's staying with him, shouted up, are you up there, Mulligan? And Buck Mulligan says, I'm coming, Buck Mulligan. He turned towards Stephen and said, look at the sea. What do they care about offences? Chuck Loyola. Now, Loyola, Ignatius Loyola founded the Jesuit order. So he said, Chuck Loyola, Chuck Loyola, forget about the teachings of the Jesuits or whatever. Chuck Loyola, that's what he means there, Kench. And come on down, the Sassenach, the English person whose hands wants his morning rashers. He wants his breakfast. We're going to cook breakfast now. Morning rasher. Rasher is another word for bacon. His head halted again for a moment at the top of the staircase. His head halted again for a moment at the top of the staircase, level with the roof. So now he's obviously descending down the staircase, and seems like his head halted again for a moment at the top of the staircase, level with the roof. So his head, if you're looking along the roof now in this building and this tower, all you see is his head sticking up. And he says, don't mope over it all day. He said, I'm inconsequent. Give up the moody brooding. Give up the moody brooding. His head vanished. His head vanished. He went down inside. That's great writing. His head vanished, but the drone of his descending voice boomed out of the stairhead. And no more turn aside and brood upon love's bitter mystery, for Fergus rules the breathing cares. Now that's a line from a W.B. Yeats poem. And no more turn aside and brood upon love's bitter mystery, for Fergus rules the breathing cares. Yes, that's a line from a W.B. Yeats poem, and he's referred to there earlier. Don't mope over it all day, he said. I am inconsequence. Give up the moody brooding. That's part of that poem too, I think. His head vanished. That's a great way of describing that. His head vanished, but the drone of his descending voice boomed out of the stairhead. And then we get the 3 lines of the poem. Next line. Wood shadows floated silently by through the morning peace, from the stairhead seaward where he gazed. Wood shadows. Just imagine a cloud overhead and wood shadows floating all over the place. Great writing. Wood shadows floated silently by through the morning peace, from the stairhead seaward where he gazed. Inshore and farther out, a mirror of water. Great writing. A mirror of water whitened, spurned by light-shod hurrying feet, spurned by light-shod hurrying feet. Obviously kids playing in the water, at the edge of the water, or I would say. White breast of the dim sea, white breast, that's the tide coming in. The twinning stresses. Visualize, if you could visualize waves slowly coming into the beach. The twinning stresses, it's like they're coming in, it's like they're chords. The twinning stresses, chords like in a harp kind of. The twinning stresses 2 by 2, a hand plucking the harp strings. Yeah, here we are, the harp. A hand plucking the harp strings, a hand, it's like the hand plucking. He's describing the waves coming in as being like a harp string. A hand plucking the harp strings, merging their twinning chords. Wedded words, just brilliant writing. Wedded words, shimmering on the dim tide. Just the shimmering is just. He's describing the waves coming in on the beach. It reminds you of a harp, and just the way he's intertwined everything there like a harp. It's just brilliant writing. The twinning stresses 2 by 2, a hand plucking the harp strings, merging their twinning chords, wave white wedded words shimmering on the dim tide. Now it's lines like that make Joyce an absolute genius. Next line. A cloud began to cover the sun slowly. Just to visualize a cloud covering the sun slowly. shadowing the bay in deeper green, a shadow of the bay in deeper green. And that's great imagery, it's fantastic imagery. It lay behind him a bowl of bitter water. It lay behind him a bowl of bitter waters. Fergus's song, I sang it alone in the house. Holding down the long dark chords, her door was open. She wanted to hear my music. Silent with awe and pity, I went to her bedside. She was crying in her wretched bed. For those words, Stephen love's bitter mystery. Just start that paragraph again. A cloud began to cover the sun slowly, shadowing the bay in deeper green. It lay behind him, a bowl of bitter waters. Fergus's song. Now, this is Stephen Dedalus thinking right here. Fergus's song, which is, it's a W. Yeats's poem, to the best of my knowledge. I can't recall the name of the poem, but it's Fergus's song. It's so Fergus's song. I sang it alone in the house. So Stephen Dedalus, sometime in the past, sang this poem as a song alone in the house, holding down the long dark chords. He was probably playing some kind of a musical instrument. Could be a harp, could be a guitar, something like that. Her door was open. His mother's door was open. She wanted to hear my music. So his mother, in the past, at sometime in the past, wanted to hear him, hear his music and hear him singing this W. Yeats' song, Fergus's or poem as a song. Silent with awe and pity, I went to her bedside. So he went to her bedside. She was crying in her wretched bed. She was obviously in bad health at that stage. For those words, she was crying in her wretched bed. And she obviously loved hearing that, and she was tears of joy, I would say. For those words, Stephen loves bitter mystery. Where now? Next line. Where now? Now, the next paragraph here. Her secrets, old feather fans, tasselled dance cares, powdered with musk, a gaud of amber beads in her locket drawer. A birdcage hung in the sunny window of her house when she was a girl. She heard old Rice sing in the pantomime of Turco the Terrible and laughed with others when he sang. So I just want to start that paragraph again. Her secrets. Now, Stephen Dedalus here is thinking about his mother's secrets. You know, the things his mother left behind. Her secrets. Old feather fans. He found old feather fans belonged to her. Tasselled dance cares belonged to her. Powdered with musk. A gaud of amber beads in her locket drawer. This is what he found after she died. A birdcage hung in the sunny window of her house when she was a girl. She heard old Rice sing in the pantomime. Sing in the pantomime of Turco the Terrible and laughed with others when he sang. So he's thinking back to his mother being at a pantomime, and she heard old Rice sing. Old Rice is the name of a person, I would say. Sing in the pantomime of Turco the Terrible and laugh with others when he sang, I am the boy that can enjoy invisibilities. Phantasmal mirth folded away musk perfume. These are all the things she left behind. Phantasmal mirth folded away musk perfume, and no more turn aside and brood. This is another line from W. It's that same poem, and no more turn aside and brood. So he's probably said that out. He's probably sung that out himself, or he just said it out. And no more turn aside and brood. Folded away in the memory of nature with her ties, memories beset his brooding brain. Her glass of water from the kitchen tap when she had approached the sacrament, a cored apple filled with brown sugar, roasting for her at the hob on a dark autumn evening. Her shapely fingernails reddened by the blood of squash lice from the children's shirts. So start that paragraph again. Folded away in the memory of nature with her ties, memories beset his brooding brain. Now this is the Joyce the writer taking over here now. Memories beset his brooding brain. Stephen Dedalus's brooding brain. her glass of water. So her glass of water from the kitchen tap when she had approached the sacrament, when she was receiving Holy Communion before she died, the sacrament which is Holy Communion, and a glass of water. And Stephen Dedalus also thinking back in the past when he probably came home one evening and he's seen a cord apple, probably on many occasions. He's seen a cord apple filled with brown sugar roasting for her at the hob on a dark autumn evening. He's thinking back in memories about his mother and her shapely fingernails reddened by the blood of squash lice. We know she was the squash lice from the children's shirts. So he's thinking of times in the past. In a dream, silently she had come to him, her wasted body within its loose grave clothes, giving off an odour of wax and rosewood. Her breath bent over him with mute, secret words, a faint odour of wetted ashes. Now we read that Joyce has put in this paragraph again. We've already read this, but it's bringing Joyce has brought it back into the book again. In a dream, so Stephen Dedalus again. His dreams about his mother. In a dream, silently she had come to him, her wasted body within its loose grave clothes, giving off an odour of wax and rosewood. Her breath bent over him with mute, secret words, a faint odour of wetted ashes. She could have been a smoker. It's possible. Next line. Her glazing eyes staring out of death. Her glazing eyes staring out of death, to shake and binge my soul on me alone. The ghost candle to light her agony, ghostly light on the tortured face, her hoarse, loud breath rattling in horror, while all prayed on their knees, her eyes on me to strike me down. And here we have Latin. I won't even attempt to pronounce it. Lil atata rulana te confa, something like that. So I'll start that paragraph again. In a dream, silent she had come, wasted body within. So in a dream, she comes to him in a dream. Her glazing, and he's still referring to what he sees in the dream. Her glazing eyes staring out of death. You just imagine she's about to die, and the glazing eyes staring out, to shake and bend my soul on me alone. The ghost candle to light her agony. The ghost candle to light her agony. So obviously before she died, there was like a candle there beside the bed, and he's referring to it, a ghost candle to light her agony, and you can see the pain in her face. Ghostly light on the tortured face. That's just great writing. Imagine this ghostly light, like the candle on the tortured face. She's obviously in pain. Her hoarse, loud breath rattling in horror. She was obviously coughing and everything. While all prayed on their knees, the people in the bed all praying on their knees, praying for her. Her eyes on me to strike, and she was obviously looking at Stephen Dedalus. Her eyes on me to strike me down. Ghoul, chewer of corpses. Ghoul, chewer of corpses. Ghoul, ghost, chewer of corpses. Not really sure what he means by chewer of corpses there. Next line. No mother, let me be and let me live. No mother. Now Stephen Dedalus is more or less saying, no mother, let me be, let me live. Kench a high. So obviously someone is called from inside the tower. I would say Buck Mulligan. But yeah, Buck Mulligan is Kench a high. He shouted up to Stephen Dedalus. Kench a high. Come on down. Buck Mulligan's voice sang from within the tower. He came nearer up the staircase, calling again. So obviously Buck Mulligan has climbed the stairs, calling in. Stephen, still trembling at his soul's cry, heard warm running sunlight, and in the air behind him friendly words. Buck Mulligan's voice sang from within the tower. He came nearer, so he climbed the stairs, calling in. Stephen, still trembling, he's still thinking about his mother and all that, at his soul's cry, heard warm running sunlight, and in the air behind him friendly words, which is Buck Mulligan speaking. Dedalus, come down like a good mosey. Breakfast is ready. Haynes is apologising for waking us last night. It's all right. So Dedalus, come down like a good like a good lad, like a good mother. Breakfast is ready. I have the breakfast ready. Haynes is apologising for ranting and raving about the Panther last night. He's apologising to us. It's all right. Next line. I'm coming, Stephen said, turning. Do for Jesus' sake, but Buck Mulligan said, for my sake and for all our sakes. His head disappeared and reappeared. Now that's just fabulous writing. His head disappeared and reappeared. But Mulligan's head disappeared from the roof, down the stairs, and reappeared in the room below. Next line. I told him your symbol of Irish art. He says, I told him your symbol of Irish art. He says it's very clever. Touch him for a quid, will you? A guinea, I mean. His head disappeared and reappeared. Now, actually, thinking about that again, his head disappeared, so he's obviously sticking his head up at the roof level, so it's and then he bent his head down. His head disappeared and reappeared. I have to keep reading now to fully understand that. But anyways, he said, Buck Mulligan is saying to Stephen Dedalus, I told him your symbol of Irish art, which is a cracked-looking glass of a servant. He says it's very clever. Haynes says it's clever. Touch him for a quid. Ask him for the loan of a quid, pound, dollar. Will you? A guinea, I mean, which is more than a pound. Guinea, I mean. Next line. I get paid this morning, Stephen said. So now we know this Stephen Dedalus gets paid. He gets paid if wherever he's working. Or the school kip, Buck Mulligan said. How much? 4 quid. Linda's one. The school kip. So now we know Stephen Dedalus works in a school. At the school kip, the school place, that means kind of. But how much? 4 quid. So Buck Mulligan has said, the school kip, you mean? Buck Mulligan said, how much? Oh, you get 4 quid. Linda's one. Linda's, give us a loan of one of them pounds. Next line. If you want it, Stephen said. 4 shining sovereigns. Buck Mulligan cried with delight, which probably makes up 1 quid, 1 pound. We'll have a glorious drunk to astonish the Drury Druids. 4 omnipotent sovereigns. The Drury Druids. The Druids were ancient kind of priests in Ireland. 4 omnipotent sovereigns. Right. Next line. He flung up his hands and trampled down the stone stairs, singing out of tune with a Cockney accent. I just want to stop there now for a second. So he flung up his arm and tramped down the stone stairs, singing out. So he's going back down into the room. So back to that line. I want to go back to that line again. His head disappeared and reappeared. So, okay, what that actually means there, his head disappeared and reappeared. I'm just going to read that line again. I'm coming, Stephen said, turning. Do for Jesus' sake, Buck Mulligan said, for my sake, for all sakes. His head disappeared. So, okay, Buck Mulligan is at the top of the stairs, and he hasn't went back down to the room yet. His head disappeared, so he's about to go back down, so his head disappeared from the roof, and then he popped his head up again. That's exactly what that means there now. So his head disappeared. You could see it. His head was sticking up at the roof level, and then it disappeared. Like he was going back down the room, but then he popped his head back up again and reappeared. His head disappeared and reappeared. I just want to stop there now for a minute because I would just like to take a wee break for a few seconds and get back. That's page 8 completed. We'll continue on in a few minutes at page 9.